Tell me, can you tell me, why have all religions and political ideologies failed to bring about peace in the world?
We're talking seriously?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. I didn't know. Serious or not, or what. You know, ideologies divides people. The ideologies of the Buddhist, the Hindu, and the Christian. Ideologies don't bring people together, ever. Like the communists, they try to bring, through an ideology, a monolithic state, world, but it can't succeed through ideologies. And ideologies invariably divide man. You can see that in the world, actually, what is taking place. The Christian ideology, opposed to the Indian ideology, and the Muslim ideology, and also amongst the Christians, the Protestant ideology, the Baptist, they all break up, all fragmentation takes place. And so religions throughout the world have not brought about unity of mankind. On the contrary, the Christian religion has been the cause of innumerable wars, devastating wars. So is the Muslim. Only I think, from what they have said, probably the Buddhist religion is the only one that has not brought about a war. The others have. So why, one wonders, why man wants ideologies at all? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Why should we have ideologies? What do you think?
It seems like one needs an ideology to convince people not to kill each other. I mean, to convince people.
Do we need ideologies to convince people? I may convince you of an idea, or a way of living, convince you. And what happens then? You try to live according to that particular pattern way of living, and somebody else lives according to another pattern. Mm-hmm. So there is a conflict between the two. So why should you have ideologies at all? That's really the basic question. What do you think?
I don't know.
First of all, we cannot face what is. What actually is daily life is too disturbing, too destructive to face that, because we don't know what to do with it. Mm-hmm. So we try to invent an ideology which might help us to live everyday life. Now, you take the example, for instance, of human beings are violent. That's obvious. By their nature, by their instinct, they have derived it from the animal, the society in which they live, and so on and on and on. Human beings are essentially, basically violent people. Mm-hmm. That's so, isn't it?
Yes.
In their relationship, in their activity, in their ambitions, in their pursuits, sport, in every way they are violent people. Now, instead of coming to grips with that violence, we invent an ideology of non-violence. Mm-hmm. So there is the fact of violence and the ideology of non-violence, right?
Yes.
So there are these two states, the actual fact of violence and the fictitious ideology of non-violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is conflict between what is and what should be, right?
Yes.
Now, that conflict is so unnecessary, isn't it? If I know how to tackle, how to come to grips with violence. So, to understand violence, what is the need of non-violence? The ideology. They have talked a great deal in India about non-violence. That's one of their pet panacea for everything. But the people who have preached it are extraordinarily violent people in themselves. So the question is really why human beings demand an ideology, demand a principle, say what they something entirely different from what is.
Well, man is essentially a social being, and in order to live together with men, he's got to have something common with his fellow men, and it seems to me ideologies serve this purpose of making a cohesive
Look what
society.
happens. It brings certain group of people together. And there is, in opposition to that group, another community with a different set of ideologies, and therefore they're in contradiction with each other.
Yes, but is man able to live alone without something to bring him together with other men, even though this be only a fragment?
So, what is the common factor that might bring man together? Obviously not ideologies. You agree?
I don't know.
Look in the world what is happening. Look actually what is happening. There is the Christian ideology, communist ideology, the Hindu ideology, the Buddhist, and so on, so on, so on, all splintered up, all against each other, not only economically, but in different ways, religiously, in behavior, conduct, and so on, all fighting each other. So ideologies, as one observes, both historically and factually, has not brought about unity of man. So is there any other factor which can bring men together?
Love?
You say love. So is love an idea? Is love a belief, a thing projected by thought?
No.
No. So, is it possible to love without ideology? Why do we have to have an ideology if we love? I think because we don't know how to love, we then invent an ideology which might bring people together and which hasn't succeeded. Right? So why can't we reject all ideologies, whether it is communist ideology or any other ideology, and see if it is possible to live together amicably, in peace. And to live in peace, not just one community only, but to live in peace for all communities, for all human beings, there must be first the ending of all nationalities, right?
Well, what happens if we get rid of all these nationalities and ideologies, and we find out then that we cannot love one another?
I know. You cannot get rid of nationalities, ideologies, without understanding the whole structure of nationality and ideologies. It is the understanding of the structure of ideology and the nature of it that brings about intelligence. You can't just say, well, I won't be nationalistic. That's nothing. But if you say, well, let's find out why. The human beings have divided themselves not only geographically, but nationally, religiously. Why? Why have they divided?
Because they want to feel superior.
No, not only one feels superior, one feels more secure. In a small community, to be identified with a group of people, you feel secure. You feel safe. And that is extended nationalistically. One nation says, if a human being says, I belong to this nation, to this group, to this community, to this way of living, he feels secure. So the basis of this division is the demand for security.
But this division destroys security.
That just it. It is, we demand security and at the same time bring about its own destruction. Take what is happening. The world is divided nationalistically and also linguistically, and divided through sovereign states and armies and all that business. And all human beings demand to be secure, to be safe. And yet, dividing themselves nationalistically, having different governments, they are bringing about their own destruction. We don't see that. I don't know. If we see that intelligently, we say, let's abolish this stupidity of nationality.
But is it so easy for one individual to just abolish nationalism?
It must begin with a small minority of people. You follow what I mean? After all, if a group of us say, look, nationalities prevent man living together peacefully, if we see the intelligently the whole issue, then naturally we'll drop it. And then we will work for it, we'll do all kinds of things for it. But if you say, no, nationality is the most sacred thing, then it's finished. This flag worship, there is the flag, Indian flag, the British flag, you follow what I mean? This identification with a group of people, that is the problem. Why do we want to identify ourselves with a community?
It makes me somehow bigger, if I can do
Not
that.
only bigger, go into it, sir. Examine it, you will see it. Not only I feel more egotistically expanded, I feel more secure. And also, I identify myself because in myself I'm a very small entity. I'm a very small human being. So when I identify myself with something much bigger, which I consider nation, I feel very proud, very big. And for that, I'm willing to kill. So human beings, right through the world, identify themselves with an image, with the flag, with a god, with a symbol, because it gives them a feel, not only it stimulates them to feel that they have something real. You know this? But it is merely a verbal reality, and therefore not real at all. Therefore, why do human beings, right through the world, identify themselves with their family, with their job, with their, you follow? Country, with their flag, with every, why? Find out, sir, why? Why do I or you identify ourselves with a family, with a nation, with an ideology? Why?
Because I fear being alone. Because I fear being alone by myself.
That's it, isn't it? You fear being not only alone, but the sense of loneliness, the sense of not being. By identifying yourself with something, you feel you are. Right?
Right. Because if I can't project myself into my society, then I shall see that really there's nothing inside of me.
So please don't agree with what I'm saying, you see?
Yeah.
Don't agree or discard. Let's examine it. Why do human beings desire passionately to identify themselves with something? Because we just said it is because they feel in themselves insufficient, lonely, unhappy, and they want to identify themselves with something which will give them happiness, which will assure them a kind of ideological safety, which is an illusion. So, without identifying yourself, why are human beings lonely? They may have a house, they may have a property, like in this country, you have extraordinary wealth, prosperity, beauty of this land. And yet, one lives such a superficial life. So the superficiality of life increases the deeper inward loneliness, which makes them seek not only amusement, entertainment, whether it be the entertainment of the church or the football field, but also makes them feel that they must identify with something much greater than the little family. Therefore there is the nation, or God. You see this phenomena. I mean, this isn't my invention or my particular quirk. You see this happening. So, is it possible to face this loneliness and not run away through identification? You get it?
Yeah.
Can you face this extraordinary sense of insufficiency, this sense of loneliness? Not try to fill it through knowledge, through drink, through drugs, through excitement, sex, entertainment, and all the rest of it. Not fill it, because you can't fill the emptiness. You can't feel this loneliness. Right? So, can you face it? Can you become completely acquainted with it, intimately? Learn about it. And in learning about it, you are finding out the structure of it. You follow? The nature of it. And therefore the mind, by observing it, becomes more and more intelligent. Right? And it is this intelligence that says, how stupid all this way of living. How destructive. And then you begin to find out that it is only possible to live humanly with peace when there is love. Not an idea about love. I don't know if you see the difference.
Yeah.
An ideology, what love should be, and the actual state of love.
But what is it that prevents us from seeing the actual?
Because most of us are lazy. Most of us are satisfied with things as they are. We don't want to be disturbed at any price. The established order right through the world say, please, for God's sake, leave us alone. Carry on with our wars, with our prejudices, with our nationalistic, linguistic differences, with our, leave us alone. And for most of us, that's good enough. Leave things as they are. But life isn't. Life will reject what things as they are. And the whole revolt of the younger generation is against this.
Does this revolt have any value?
Obviously it has certain value.
I mean, is it of ultimate value?
I doubt it. Because you see, unless we understand the nature of this, again we come back, the nature and the structure of society which human beings have built, and human beings are slaves to what they have built, which is the society. If you understand this interrelationship intelligently, then there is a revolution, psychological revolution, an inward revolution, which is far more important than the economic or social revolution. Go on. So you see, sir, what is important in all this is not mere revolt, but a total psychological revolution. So that our minds and our hearts are completely changed. Not follow the established order. And that's why it's very important to understand ourselves. Ourselves being the society, ourselves being the world. The world is not different from you and me. Whether you live in this marvelous country or in those villages in India or in Asia. Because unless we understand ourselves, we divide the world as ourselves, as the individual, and the community, the society, as something separate from us. And hence the conflict between the individual and the society.